Hello everyone. Today we will talk about form validation and forecast in Flutter. Okay, let's start with main.dot file here. Okay, firstly we will have no classes. Okay, so let's remove this thing and then we are going to create a new file. Okay, so let's set this file to be, it should be in this lib folder. Okay, make sure it is in this folder. So set the name of the file to be anything you want. For example, it could be uh, form focus, form validation. Put that here. Okay, so what is form validation? Actually, when we create the input widgets, for example, text field in Flutter, you can ask the user to input something, and the user, of course, could input anything they want. So form validation is just only the method to validate whether the input of the user is correct in the format that you need or not. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to import the material package here, and then we are going to create the stateful widget. Okay, here. Okay, and I will use the same name of the class as the file, form validation. And my bad, I have lost the widget control. So let undo everything and redo this thing again and change this to form validation. Okay, so let me hide the left panel here. Okay, now what we are going to decide for this page is very simple. We would like to have the uh, page similar to the registration page. Okay, so let's try to remove this part. This is in the view part, which will be the UI, right? Okay, and here I'm going to add the scaffold. And in this scaffold, just change the title of the page to be like a registration. And then here we are going to change container to be a column so that we can provide the vertical widgets. Okay, before going on, I will return back to main.dot to link this file form validations to here. Okay, so we are going to set the home, the body, of the material applications and home, and then set to that file form validation. Let's Flutter auto import this file. Okay, let's format it a little bit. Okay, so now we have linked these two files together. Okay, and then switch back to the form validation file. The design of the UI will be very simple. I will provide a children of this thing, and then I'm going to input the text field. Okay, so let's start with the text field. Okay, and this will be something like we will ask the user to input username and password and re-input the password, and then have the button for registrations. Okay, so let's start with the text field, and then we can provide the decorations. Okay, let me provide a command here first and set the decorations to be like a input decoration, and you can format it to anything you want. I'm going to use the outline border, outline input border here for the border, and provide the label text, okay, to be the username, like that. Okay, let me format this. Okay, so this will be our text field, and we provide a decoration, simple decoration. So now we are ready to building this and see the result in the emulator. So make sure that this emulator is linked with the IDE, the Visual Studio Code, and then we just run, okay, without debugging, and wait to see the result. Okay, and after waiting for quite a long time, you should see the result on the emulator here. So we have the username and we can fill in some input around here. So of course, the formulation objective is to check whether the input here is correct, is uh, for the our objectives or not. For example, if the user forgot to input the username here and submit the value, we should provide the warning, okay, around uh, by any means. Okay, so it means that we will have the register button around there. Okay, so let's try to add one more button. Okay, before going into that part, I'm going to add some padding a little bit to the column. Okay, rapid padding. And then in order to hide this warning, I'm going to change this to const. Sorry, I should provide the const here. Oops, add the columns. Okay, so let's see. It should be like that one. And then we will add one elevated button around there. Okay, so let's change this to the anonymous function. And for the chart here, let's uh, use the text widget and register, something like that. Okay. And then add this comma a little bit here for formatting. Okay, we should get the result like this. And because this is not constant, so I cannot put constant here. I should come back and put constant there. Okay, and this should be also the constant. Okay, so you see the register function here, button here. So the idea is that if we don't input anything and click at this register button, it should provide some warning. Okay, so that is the objective of form validation. And to do that, we are going to add something. For example, we gonna have to add the global key, okay, and add the form, okay, to wrap all these widgets and then bind the key to the form. Okay, so let's start. Okay, the first step is we have to create the global key. Okay, and I'm going to create it around here. Okay, over the view function. Okay, so we can create the form key and set it to be global key, and then we uh, set the type to be the form state. Yeah, so this is how to create the global key for using later with the form validation. And then we can have to wrap our UI, our form with the form. So I'm going to wrap everything here, the UI here, start with padding here inside the form. Okay, so I'm going to click here and set wrap with we don't have form, so we wrap with widget. Okay, so then just change this widget to form. Okay, so now we wrap everything here inside the form here so that we can perform form validation. Okay, and the next step is that we can have to use the key that we have created here, the form key. So here is our form, right? We put the key to be our form key. Okay, so next thing to do is that after having this form key, we really have to change our text field. Okay, even we want our text field to get the input data, but when we're gonna have to use it with the form here, you can have to change it to be text form field. Okay, so that it can have the validation. Okay, so after changing this to text form field, we can have to remove const here and then we can have to, of course, change this to cont instead. And then in this text form field, okay, we could buy it with the text editing controller to get the user input. Okay, we will do it later. Okay, so we will focus on the validation first. Okay, here we for the text form field here we will be able to validate it. Okay, because text form field we have the properties called validator. Okay, so you can add validator here, and this thing will provide a callback. Okay, with the parameter namely value. Okay, you can use arrow function or normal function as you want. Okay, so the value here from the validator will be the input string, the now label string here. So you can validate whether this value is null or not, it is empty or not. Okay, by using this validator function. Okay, so what we are going to do is very simple. Use the if command in order to validate whether the value here is null or not first, because this is null label string. Here you see type. Okay, so if it is null, okay, we should do something, right? Of course, here we could return, okay, the string, the error string or the warning string to the user. Okay, for example, you can say that please enter username. Okay, something like that one. In this case, and generally, if there is nothing, okay, if this case is or true or false, either true or false, you can have to return now. Okay, for the validator. Okay, so for this thing, the user, the case that the value is now is something that could be difficult to find, but of course, the simplest case to see whether this validator should work or not is when the user forget to input anything. So it means that if the user did not input anything and click the register function here, register button here, the value here will be empty. So you can add another conditions, or the value dot is empty. Okay, if it is an empty string, okay, either it is null or empty string, you can have to do something like this one. Okay, but if you don't use if value equal to null here, you would like to use just leave value is empty. For example, here you can have to add the exclamation mark here because the value here is now label string, not a simple string. Okay, so it is better to add this line because this case you check whether the value is null or not, and if it is null, it will not jump to the second condition here because we join them using the or symbol here. Okay, okay, and then after providing the validator like here, the last step is to go to this button. Okay, the validation will happen whenever you click this button, right? The register button. So we can have to add some logic here in order to trigger the validator. Okay, so that kind of triggering is like to check whether the form validation is complete or not, because generally this register function will work after we get the correct input, right? Okay, so we provide the if command and say whether our form key, we refer to our form key, which is binded to the form. Okay, dot current state. Okay, and this will return the nullable form state. Yeah, so we can have to provide the exclamation mark. Okay, and dot validate, and this command will trigger the validator here. Okay, so this means if everything is validate, okay, if all input is correct, okay, according to the rules we provided here. Okay, so we just do something. Okay, for example, uh, register by passing the data to the server or to the database. Okay, so I will not do anything, just only say that printing validated. Okay, here for debugging purposes. Okay, So this command will trigger this validator. So whenever we do not input anything, let the value here is empty, it will provide this message. Please enter username. Otherwise, it will print the validated here to the debug console. Okay, so let's save this code and see the result. Okay, in the first use case, I will not input anything here and click the register button there. Okay, so let's see. So you see that Flutter automatically provides the warning message here under this text form field and highlight with the red color to the text form field. Okay, and if we input something, for example, username, and click register, you see that it prints the validated to the debug console. Let's continue by adding more text form field under the username. Okay, so for simplicity, I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, so this is the entire text form field here, right? So we just copy this one and then paste it there. Okay, to have the second text form field. This is the first one for username. So the second one here, I will change the label text to password. Okay, and because this is the password, right? So I'm going to provide the obscure text to be true. And then the validation should be, of course, if the user input nothing, okay, it should be nice, and change this one to be please enter password. Okay, so let's save and see that we have the second text form field. We should provide the space between these two fields. Okay, so let's switch to here and add the size box. Okay, with a specific height, for example, maybe around 8. Okay, and it should be const. Okay, so we have the password around here also. So let's try to let it blank and click register. You see that here they need to get the password. Okay, so this will work for the password field. Okay, and let's add one more text form field when we need the user to re-input the password. Okay, so I'm going to, of course, copy this second text form field and also the size box there and paste it below here. Okay, so now you have the third text form field and this will be also the password. So let me label this one to be password again. Okay, and of course the validation rules is if the user input something, not input anything, okay, we will ask the user to input the password. But another thing is that the two password. Okay, let me save this thing first so that you can see the password again here. It means that these two passwords must be matches. Okay, must be the same so that we can register. So the second password here should have another validator. So let's add another rule for the validation. So we can have to get the password right, which is the value, and that value must be the same as the previous one. So to do that, we need to get the value here, okay, from the second from field here. And we cannot, of course, pass this value to another widget because it is the function binded to just only the second widget here. So to do that, we're going to have to use the text editing controller in order to get the value from each text form field there. Okay, so let's try to create the text editing controller. Okay, so I will mark that this will be the text controller. Okay, so I'm going to say that this could be like a TC for text editing controller. This will be for the username if you would like to get or use it later. Okay, and it will be equal to text editing controller. Okay, yeah, this is for username. Okay, let's duplicate this one and two more times. Okay, the second one will be for the password. and also this one will be for the password also. But for the second password, if you would like to use it later. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit after adding this text editing controller. This is the first text form field, right? When we have the username. So we're going to add the controller and bind it to the TC username. Okay, and also the same thing for the second controller here. Controller will be divided to this text form field, TC password. Okay, and for the third one, do the same thing. Okay, so now after having the controller linked with this text form field, we should be able to get the input value from the second form here and use it in this validator. So if this one, the rule should be that if the input value here in the third form field is not equal to or is different from the second form field here, which is linked to this TC password text editing controller, right? So we just use this thing, TC password.text. So this means that if the third input here is not equal to the second input there, okay, we just show something, okay? Actually, it should be different case than please enter password, right? So to make it better, you could cut this thing, okay, and add another case. Oh, sorry. You can say else if, okay, something like this one, and paste another rule, another validation, okay, and say that return password do not match, okay, something like this for the second case. Okay, and let's see the result. Save this thing, and then here let's try to input the username so that the warning doesn't appear here. Okay, and let's try to input 1 2 3 here for the first password, and for this one we just only input 1 there. Okay, and click register. You see that the warning happened here, password do not match, okay, on the second uh, password box. Okay, so let's try to add 2 and 3 to make these two passwords the same, and now click register. So you see that this time all everything is good, and the validated uh, output is here in the debug console. Okay, so this is how we validate the password, okay, and check whether they are the same or not. Okay, I will try to add another text form field here. Okay, for example, the form that requests the integer input, the number input from the user. Okay, so let me copy, okay, the first text form field here, the username, the first box here, and then scroll down until here before the button, because I would like to add another text form field here. Okay, so paste it there, and then this time I'm going to label this one to be H. I would like to get the H from the user for the registration. And then before I forget everything, I'm going to duplicate the text editing controller here and change it to TCH. Okay, and then scroll down until we return to the last text form field here and change this one to TCH. Okay, and this one, after saving, you see that there will be another box here, H. Oh, I should also copy the space here, size box. Okay, and now we have the H form field here. And generally, we really want this field to be an integer, but of course, the user input could be anything, okay, so that we can have to prevent the type mismatch, okay, by validate using the rule here. Okay, so of course this rule is still the good rule to use. Okay, please enter if the user did not input anything. Okay, and the second case is that if the user input something but it is not an integer, it is not a number, okay, like that one. So we gonna have to provide a second validator. Okay, we could say that if the value, which is of course the string, okay, we can have to convert it into integer first, right? So we can have to use some command. For example, this one in and try pass, and this command we try to pass the string to be an integer. Okay, so it means that if we try pass this thing, it will either return, if you move your mouse over, okay, two cases, either the number or noun. Okay, two possible result. So if this thing is not null, it means that we get the integer we want. But the other case will be if this thing is null, it means that we input something that cannot be translated or converted to an integer. Okay, so here we can have to return an error message saying that please input only integer, a number, okay, something like that one. Okay, and that's it. So save this thing and let's see the result. Okay, all of the three inputs here are correct, right? Okay, so let's try this case. If you do not input anything and click register, it will ask you to input the age. But if you input something which is not an integer, for example, ABC here, and click register, it will ask you to reconsider input the integer. Okay, this message will be shown. Okay, and the correct case is that if you input something to be an integer, right? For example, here, and click register, you see that validated, everything is done. Okay, that's good for this thing. And let me change this a little bit. Instead of printing validated to the screen, okay, to the debug console, this thing will not be shown to the end user. So sometimes they do not know what happened. Okay, so let's try to use something like a dialog or scaffold, okay, to present to the user. So let me use the scaffold instead of this debug print. So to use the scaffold, you can have to use the scaffold messengers dot off and then context, and then you can show the snack bar here, and this snack bar will be the snack bar object. Okay, so let me close this with semicolon first, and this thing will be the snack bar. Okay, and this snack bar will have the content, which will be the widget that we would like to show, and generally it will be the text. Okay, and here we are going to say that inside this snack bar show a message that something you want. Okay, so you can say that this register. Okay, and we're gonna have to add the constant modifier. Okay, and let me format this a little bit. I think that we should provide just snack bar here, and interpreter there. So okay, like that. Okay, let's save this thing. Okay, and then try to click register, and you see the snack bar appears at the bottom for a while. Okay, that should be everything for the validation. You can add more validation rules here as you wish. And the last thing that we would like to talk about in this topic is to reset the form and focus on some form field here. Okay, so let's add the reset button here to reset everything in this form. Okay, our button is here, right? The elevated button here. Okay, I would like to add another button at the right place here. Okay, so let's wrap this elevated button using a row. Okay, so here we wrap with row so that we can place another elevated button to the right hand side. Okay, just copy this elevated button and paste it there, Okay, and then we don't need the validation, so you can delete the validation here in the reset button. So just change the name of this button to be reset. Okay, and if you save this thing, you see another button there. Okay, so let's move both of them to the center of the screen by adding the alignment, main axis alignment to the center. Yeah, and I would like to change the reset button color. So let's go to here, the second elevated button, and then I'm going to use the style. Okay, and use the elevated button style. Okay, form, and then change the background color to be red. Okay, so we have the different color between two buttons there. Okay, so when we click this reset button, you would like to reset everything inside this form. Okay, to do that, it is very simple. We can use the form key dot current state and dot reset, and that's it. This should reset everything. Okay, and of course this thing is nullable, so you have to add this symbol. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so now let's try to click the reset button here. Okay, if it doesn't work, we may need to reload this uh, form again. Okay, and then try input something. Okay, and then click reset. Yeah, it should work. Okay, so this kind of thing is very simple for form resetting. However, when you reset this form, you may need to focus to the first form view instead of the last form view. Okay, the latest form that the user just input the value. Okay, to do that, you may have to set the focus to this first form view. To do that, we can have to set the focus node. Okay, and of course, this is optional, and we may not need to do that. Okay, so if you would like to click reset here and set the focus to be the first form there. Okay, you can just use the focus node. Okay, so let me scroll up before the build function here and add the comment that this will be for focus nodes. Okay, and here we are going to create another variable, okay, to be of the type of the focus nodes. Focus nodes. Okay, and then by this variable to the field that we would like to have the autofocus or to be able to focus later. Okay, and this is the first form field, right? The username. And the first topic is here. Okay, having the controller here. So let me add the focus node. Okay, to be our focus node variable there. Okay, and then finally, when we click the reset, we just set the focus to be at this node or to be at our first form view here. So scroll down until you get to the second button here. When we reset everything, we would like to focus on the first form view here at our focus node. Okay, so let me add some comment here that this will be the to reset form, right? And this to be the focus uh, to the first form, okay, or the user node, the username. Okay, so let's say that this will be our focus node dot request focus. Okay, so this is how we ask the cursor to be at the first form node after we click the reset button. Okay, so let's save this thing. Okay, and then let's try to input something. Okay, according to the rule. Okay, and then click reset, and this time you'll see that our focus will be moved to the first form view linked to our focus node as we said before. Okay, And the last thing that I would like to mention is that when you reload this application, you will see that there is no focus at all, okay, at the beginning. If you would like to, for example, when displaying this form or this UI, user interface, and would like to focus on any specific form view here at the beginning, okay, we can set the autofocus uh, properties of that form view. Okay, so for example, if I would like to let the cursor blinking at the username whenever I open this page, okay. Okay, so let's scroll up to the first form view here, username here, right? It is here, username, the form view. Okay, so what we are going to do is very simple. It just only say that autofocus, okay, to be true, and that's it. Whenever you save this one, okay, and let's try to reload this application. You see that the autofocus forced the cursor to blink at the first form view because of this line. Okay, so this is how we set the autofocus. Okay, that's all.